devastating times.
Recent Russian attacks in Ukrainian cities, including on hospitals and civilians fleeing, have some Ukrainians declaring that war crimes are occurring. But the international community, including the US, is saying legal assessments need to be made before that distinction can be made clear. But if war crimes are happening, what evidence is needed? And will there be any consequences for perpetrators while the war continues?
The biggest misconception is that dead civilian.
It may not tragically, in fact, be a crime. They may be lawful collateral damage, if I could put it in that way.
Particular situation.
Beyond footage of an attack and its aftermath, documentation of intent is important for criminal investigators. Experts say that it's both a difficult and slow process to gather evidence and eventually bring perpetrators to court.
It appears that the Russian forces are reverting to the use of very heavy support fire rockets, artillery systems against areas filled with civilians.
It's not a crime, but bringing it to bear without distinction, this is the legal term, between lawful military targets and the civilians in proximity to those defending forces, or indeed civilians nowhere near those defending forces, that's unlawful.
Visual evidence of attacks, taken by either civilians on cell phones or photojournalists, are important tools for building cases, but they're only a small part of what investigators need eventually
To bring a case to court.
In this case, the Russian forces, maps, reports, returns, operational orders, and this stuff will be turning up. The Ukrainians will be picking this stuff up off the battlefield, out of the vehicles they've destroyed, off prisoners, from the dead. Is there an order that simply says hit such and such series of grid squares without any specificity in terms of what? But a criminal case is composed of quite a multitude of interlocking pieces in that metaphorical puzzle.
While evidence is collected and organized by the Ukrainian government and international organizations like the International Criminal Court and Amnesty International, bringing perpetrators to justice will still require major cooperation from both sides when the conflict ends.
The Russian state is not about to collapse. The Ukrainian government may tragically be defeated, which will actually complicate the investigative process because the country will be occupied by hostile forces hostile to criminals. You know, if there's sufficient evidence, for example, to charge Vladimir Putin, the prospects of him being detained are in.
Investigators like Wiley say criminal courts could issue sealed indictments or sealed warrants that aren't known to the public for years. But if that wanted individual were to enter a country under a criminal court's jurisdiction, they could be apprehended.
It's not rushed. Ultimately, you need to build cases specific to those individuals, and that's what takes time. A prosecution. Ultimately, what investigators like my colleagues and myself will be looking for is materials generated by the attacking force.